Welcome to Zoe Stories. Doctor's Ultimatum, Gender Surgery or Else. My name is Arjun. To the outside world, I live an ordinary life. Office emails, deadlines, gym routines, and occasional late-night coffee runs. I am careful, methodical, and always conscious of maintaining appearances. Yet, beneath this seemingly ordinary exterior lies a secret life that I have guarded fiercely. A life where I am not Arjun, the man my colleagues and friends see, but Arya, the version of myself I have always felt inside but never allowed to fully emerge. Arya is not just a name. She is an escape, a persona where I can explore a softer, more vulnerable side of myself. She lives in the glow of mirrors, the rustle of silk skirts, the click of high heels on the polished floor. Each brush of makeup across my face feels like breathing in a hidden truth I cannot speak aloud. My heart races with a mix of fear and exhilaration every time I step into Arya's world, knowing that if anyone discovered it, my carefully constructed life could crumble in seconds. By day, I am meticulous and reserved, working as a data analyst at a mid-size firm. My colleagues see me as competent, serious, and dependable. No one suspects the duality of my life. The nights spent experimenting with hairstyles, the secret online purchases of delicate blouses, skirts, and shoes, and the private hours of practicing feminine gestures and expressions in the mirror. This hidden passion of mine is a labyrinth of excitement and anxiety, one that I navigate with utmost care. Emma, my girlfriend, is central to my world. She is brilliant, confident, and effortlessly beautiful, with a streak of curiosity that sometimes unnerves me. Our relationship is built on trust and affection, yet I cannot shake the fear that my secret life could destabilize everything. Emma senses parts of me that I cannot explain. My lingering glances at a passing woman's outfit, my sudden moods, my fascination with aesthetics, she doesn't fully understand. Still, she trusts me, and I cling to that trust as both a comfort and a source of tension. I love her, deeply, but the idea of revealing Arya fills me with dread. Tonight, as usual, I am alone in our apartment, the city lights filtering through half-drawn curtains. The apartment smells faintly of Emma's vanilla-scented candles and the rich aroma of the dinner she prepared earlier. I place her cup carefully on the counter and glance at the clock. She will be home late tonight, leaving me the perfect window to transform into Arya without interruption. My heartbeat quickens as I step into the bedroom, my private sanctuary, where the wardrobe doors conceal a collection of fabrics, shoes, and cosmetics that define my secret identity. I take a deep breath and reach for a delicate silk blouse, its pastel hue soft against my fingers. Choosing the right outfit is both an art and a ritual. Every piece I wear is selected not just for appearance, but for the emotional impact it carries. Each garment a layer of courage, vulnerability, and thrill. I lay out a matching skirt, its flowing fabric promising a sense of elegance, and then move to the shoes. High heels are Arya's signature, a physical manifestation of the transformation. As I slip my feet into them, balancing carefully, I feel the familiar mixture of empowerment and fragility. The next step is makeup. I sit before the vanity, the reflection staring back at me already a stranger, yet intimately familiar. Concealer, foundation, subtle contouring, eyeshadow, mascara. The ritual is meticulous. Each stroke of the brush, each application of color, is a delicate negotiation between my two identities. Arya slowly emerges from the shadows of Arjun, her presence felt in the tilt of my chin, the arch of my eyebrows, the soft curve of my lips. It is intoxicating and terrifying at once. I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror and am momentarily overwhelmed by how completely the transformation takes hold. And yet, even in this sanctuary of self-expression, anxiety is never far. The thought of Emma returning unexpectedly keeps my senses heightened. I imagine her walking through the door, her eyes widening in shock, a mixture of confusion and concern crossing her face. The fantasy is both thrilling and frightening, a tension I savor and dread in equal measure. Being Arya is not merely a choice, It is an act of courage against the expectations of the world, against the rigid identity I am supposed to inhabit. Tonight, however, there is an added layer of tension I cannot ignore. A letter slipped under my door this afternoon. Its contents were brief, chilling, and impossible to ignore. A note from Dr. Varma, a specialist in gender transformation surgery I had consulted once, warning me of a looming ultimatum: gender surgery or face consequences. The words echoed in my mind, twisting around the thrill of my hidden life. Aria's freedom suddenly felt precarious, hanging by a thread I could barely see. The room, once a haven, now seemed fraught with uncertainty. I close my eyes and take a steadying breath. I remind myself that this is a choice, even if it feels like a trap. I can embrace Aria tonight, fully and completely, or retreat back into our June, hiding until the world demands otherwise. But tonight, as the city hums outside and the soft rustle of fabric fills the apartment, I make a silent vow. Aria will live, even if just for these stolen hours. Every step, every glance in the mirror, every careful movement in high heels is a declaration of self, an assertion of identity that refuses to be silenced. As I stand, fully transformed, I feel a surge of conflicting emotions: exhilaration, fear, pride, and an unshakable vulnerability. The mirror reflects not just my image, but my dual existence, a fragile balance between who I am expected to be and who I truly am. And as I hear the faintest creak of the apartment door, a sound that could be Emma returning or just a settling floorboard, I realize that tonight, the stakes are higher than ever. The world outside is closing in, and Aria's survival depends on my courage, my wits, and my ability to navigate the shadows of secrecy. Tonight, everything will change. The city outside was a blur of neon lights and distant traffic, but inside the apartment, time seemed suspended. I know, Aria stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the delicate hem of my skirt and smoothing down the silk blouse. My heartbeat was still racing, not just from the thrill of transformation, but from the weight of Dr. Varma's ultimatum looming in the back of my mind. Gender surgery or else. The words replayed like a sinister echo, taunting me, threatening to shatter the fragile balance I had maintained for years. Every night I became Aria was a gamble, but tonight felt different. Tonight carried a tension I could feel in my bones. I glanced at the shoes laid out neatly by the vanity, black stiletto heels that seemed impossibly high, yet somehow essential. Slipping my feet into them, I tried to steady my shaking hands. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was emotional, psychological. Each layer of clothing, each brush of makeup, pulled me deeper into a version of myself I could rarely inhabit. The thrill was intoxicating, but tonight, it mingled with fear, a reminder that my secret life was teetering on the edge of exposure. I picked up a small, delicate brush and began applying eyeshadow, the soft shimmer highlighting my almond-shaped eyes. As I worked, I caught myself hesitating. What if Emma walked in early? She was usually predictable, but unpredictable things happen, especially when secrets are involved. My mind raced through countless scenarios. Emma's shock, her confusion, her disappointment. Would she understand, or would she see Aria as a betrayal of the man she thought she knew? The thought made my stomach twist. I wanted to be Aria, but I also didn't want to lose Emma's trust. Turning slightly, I examined my reflection from different angles. Aria's face stared back at me, soft, delicate, and undeniably feminine. My fingers traced the contour of my cheeks, feeling the unfamiliar curves, the subtle rise of my cheekbones enhanced by makeup. My lips, coated in a muted pink gloss, felt foreign but strangely empowering. I was both vulnerable and strong, exposed yet confident. It was a duality I had grown to crave, a delicate balance that held me captive with its allure. I moved to the wig, running my fingers through the long, chestnut strands before carefully placing it on my head. The weight was comforting, almost like a protective cloak. As I adjusted it, I thought about the hours I had spent online researching every detail of feminine appearance, how a hairstyle could alter perception, how subtle makeup could transform facial structure, how posture and gait could convey a completely different identity. I had studied this meticulously, turning curiosity into an art form. But tonight, Aria's emergence wasn't just about personal exploration, it was survival. Dr. Varma's ultimatum had introduced a new dimension of danger. I knew the note wasn't a casual suggestion, it was a threat wrapped in professional authority. Surgery or consequences? My mind couldn't stop racing with questions. What were the consequences? Legal? Professional? Something darker? The uncertainty gnawed at me, creating a tension I had never felt before. Despite the anxiety, I couldn't resist indulging in the transformation process. The thrill of donning the blouse and skirt, of tightening the heels and adjusting the wig, created a heady mix of fear and excitement. Aria was alive now, inhabiting my body fully, and the sensation was almost addictive. I twirled in front of the mirror, testing my balance, marveling at the way the fabric flowed around my legs, the way the heels altered my posture, giving me an unfamiliar yet exhilarating elegance. I paused mid-twirl as a sudden sound caught my attention, the faint creak of a floorboard outside the bedroom. My heart jumped into my throat. Emma? I froze, holding my breath, every muscle tense. The hallway was empty, just as I had expected, yet my mind conjured scenarios of discovery, confrontation, and humiliation. I reminded myself to breathe, to steady my nerves. This is what I've trained for. This is Aria's world. Slowly, I allowed myself to sink into the persona, letting Aria's confidence override Arjun's caution. I walked across the room, swaying carefully in my heels, testing each step. Each movement was deliberate, a silent rehearsal for a world that did not know me. The thrill was electric, but the fear remained, an ever-present shadow that made each moment more intense. I approached the bedroom window and peered through the blinds at the city below. It sparkled with life, a reminder of the world outside my apartment, a world that would never understand this hidden side of me. The wind against the glass seemed to whisper secrets, echoing the tension between my two identities. I realized that this dual life was a tightrope walk. One misstep, one unexpected intrusion, and the precarious balance could collapse. And yet, despite the danger, I felt a surge of defiance. Aria was not just a secret indulgence anymore. She was a statement of identity, a challenge to the boundaries imposed upon me. Tonight, I would live fully in this persona, even if only for a few stolen hours. I smoothed down my skirt one last time, adjusted my wig, and took a deep breath, committing to the thrill and vulnerability of the moment. The transformation complete, I allowed myself a final glance in the mirror. Aria looked back at me with a gaze that was both inviting and daring, a reflection of the courage I would need to navigate the challenges ahead. My pulse quickened, my senses heightened, and I knew that the night had only just begun. Every sound, every shadow, every distant echo of footsteps could signal danger or opportunity. And as the city hummed quietly beneath me, I realized that the real test of Aria's existence was about to unfold. The apartment felt simultaneously safe and menacing, a paradox that always came with the territory of Aria's nights. I perched delicately on the edge of the bed, letting my legs swing slightly in the heels, feeling the strange combination of power and vulnerability coursing through me. Aria was not just a persona. She was a fragile shield against the mundane, a delicate mask that allowed me to explore the parts of myself that Arjun could never express. But tonight, the ultimatum from Dr. Varma hung over me like a dark storm cloud, adding a layer of dread to the intoxicating thrill. I glanced at my phone lying on the desk. No messages from Emma yet. Usually, she texted if she was going to be late, but tonight there was silence. The quiet made me uneasy. I replayed Dr. Varma's words in my mind. Gender surgery or else. The ambiguity was suffocating. Or else what? Was this about legal trouble, medical pressure, or something even more sinister? The uncertainty gnawed at me, feeding a tension that was impossible to ignore. To distract myself, I focused on small rituals. The meticulous way I had chosen my outfit, the precise alignment of my wig, the gentle sweep of mascara across my lashes. Each gesture grounded me, reminded me of the careful control I wielded in Arya's world. Yet control was a fragile illusion. Even the softest sound from the hallway made me flinch, my pulse racing with the possibility of being discovered. I decided to explore the apartment as Arya. Walking carefully in my heels, I moved toward the living room, swaying gently, testing balance and presence. Every movement felt like a rehearsal for the outside world, a world that would never know Arya, a world that might never accept her. As I passed the hallway mirror, I paused, studying the reflection that both fascinated and terrified me. Arya's figure, elegant and feminine, seemed almost unreal. The contrast between this image and Arjun's usual self was stark and jarring, a duality that sometimes made my head spin. Sitting on the couch, I ran my fingers over the fabric of the skirt, feeling the smooth silk and letting my mind wander. Part of me wanted to stay frozen in this moment forever, cocooned in Arya's identity, untouched by the outside world. Yet another part, a nagging, rational part, reminded me that time was slipping by. Emma could return at any moment. A knock at the door, a sudden phone call, or even a neighbor's accidental glance could unravel everything. The thrill of secrecy was inseparable from the fear of exposure, and the duality made every heartbeat louder, every breath sharper. I stood and paced slowly, testing the rhythm of my steps and heels. The sound echoed faintly against the walls, a subtle percussion that reminded me of the fragile line I walked between confidence and panic. I recalled the hours spent online, researching femininity. Not just clothes and makeup, but body language, voice modulation, and subtle gestures. Every detail mattered. Arya's survival depended on it. Then came the first ripple of suspense, a faint knock at the front door. My heart lurched violently, and I froze mid-step, feeling the heels dig into my feet. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the city below, but the knock shattered the calm, sending adrenaline coursing through me. Who could it be? I wasn't expecting anyone. Emma was due later, and no one else had access to our apartment. Crouching slightly, I tiptoed to the peephole and peered out. No one was there, just a small package resting against the door. My pulse continued to race. I hesitated, then carefully opened the door just enough to retrieve the parcel. It was unmarked, light, and fragile. A shiver ran down my spine as I carried it back to the living room, setting it on the coffee table. I opened it slowly, revealing a single, pristine stiletto heel inside, a perfect match for the pair I was already wearing. Tied to it was a note in elegant handwriting. Arya is beautiful, but choices have consequences. My stomach twisted. The message was not just a tease. It was a warning, a veiled threat. Someone knew. Someone was aware of Arya's existence. My carefully constructed secret life had been breached, at least symbolically. Fear surged, but so did exhilaration. The thrill of discovery, of being seen without being fully exposed, heightened my senses. I ran my fingers along the heel, imagining the unknown observer watching, analyzing, judging, and perhaps testing me. The duality of fear and excitement blurred together, creating a tension so intense it was almost tangible. I realized then that Arya's transformation was more than skin deep. Every step I took in heels, every adjustment of makeup, every sway of the skirt was an act of defiance against expectations, secrecy, and now, threats. The stakes were higher than ever. This was no longer just a personal ritual. It was a test of courage, strategy, and emotional resilience. Yet, beneath the adrenaline, my mind wandered to Emma. How would she react if she discovered this? Arya fully alive, and now, under some external scrutiny. My love for her was real, but the fear of losing her trust added a suffocating weight. Balancing Arya's identity with my relationship was a precarious act, one misstep away from disaster. I took a deep breath, steadying my racing heart, and decided to embrace the persona fully. Arya had survived this long through careful planning, secrecy, and courage. Tonight, she would not retreat. Every delicate step in heels, every brush of makeup, Every flick of the wrist was a reaffirmation of identity and defiance. I adjusted the hem of my skirt one last time, straightened the wig, and let my gaze linger on the mirror. Arya stared back, poised, fragile, bold, and defiant. And somewhere in the shadows of the apartment, I knew the real test was only beginning. The package, the note, the eerie knowledge of someone watching, all of it hinted that the night ahead would challenge not just Arya's secrecy, but Arjun's survival in a world that demanded conformity. Tonight, every choice mattered. I knew I couldn't stay confined in my room forever. Arya needed space to exist fully, to move and breathe, and tonight, the city itself seemed to call to me. Slipping out of the apartment briefly was dangerous, but exhilarating. I grabbed my small clutch, carefully placing essentials inside: phone, wallet, and a tiny compact mirror. Every item had been meticulously chosen because a single misstep could reveal Arya to the wrong eyes. I slipped into the elevator, heels clicking sharply against the polished metal. Each step echoed, magnifying my heartbeat. The faint hum of conversation from the floor below made me tense, imagining strangers observing, judging, discovering. I reminded myself, control is everything. Arya thrives in controlled chaos, but tonight, chaos was creeping closer. Outside, the night air was crisp and biting. The streets were alive with neon reflections from shop windows, distant car horns, and laughter drifting from bars. It should have been ordinary, but every glance from passers-by made me hyper-aware. I could feel the transformation in a way the apartment could never allow. The city was a mirror reflecting not only my appearance, but my vulnerability. I passed a small park on the corner, its dimly lit path stretching ahead. The shadows were deep, the benches empty, yet something about the solitude amplified my tension. I found a quiet spot beneath a street lamp and paused. The heels on the uneven pavement forced me to focus, every wobble a reminder of the delicate balance between confidence and exposure. As I admired my reflection in a nearby glass storefront, I noticed a subtle movement behind me. A figure lingered, barely noticeable, but enough to set my nerves on edge. My breath caught. Is it curiosity or threat? My pulse accelerated, blending fear with adrenaline. Arya thrived on attention, yes, but unwanted attention was different. My fingers clutched the strap of my clutch tighter, concealing it as though holding onto something tangible could anchor me in reality. The figure didn't approach, but the sense of being watched was suffocating. My mind raced with scenarios. What if someone recognized me? What if Dr. Varma's message wasn't just a threat, but a surveillance warning? Every instinct screamed caution, yet another part of me, the part that craved thrill, urged me to stay, to exist boldly in the world as Arya, even under scrutiny. I moved again, slowly, deliberately. Each step in heels on the cracked pavement required focus, balance, and courage. The adrenaline coursing through me made my movement sharper, my posture straighter, my presence undeniable. I was Arya, fully inhabiting every inch of my body, every sway of my hips, every subtle gesture that announced femininity without words. Then came the first true test, a sudden shout from the street. A man stumbled out from a side alley, nearly colliding with me. My instincts took over. I pivoted on my heels, dodging with a grace I didn't know I possessed. The man's eyes widened, his attention momentarily captured by my sudden movement, and then he muttered something unintelligible before disappearing into the night. My heart raced, and I realized how fragile my control was. A single encounter could unravel hours of careful preparation, hours of secrecy, hours of emotional courage. I leaned against a lamppost, trying to steady my breath. The city's distant hum, the sporadic laughter, the faint glow of neon, all combined into a surreal symphony of tension. I was exhilarated, yes, but I also recognized the danger. Every choice mattered. One slip of a heel, one distracted glance at the wrong person, and Arya could be exposed in ways I wasn't ready to face. The thought of Emma flitted through my mind again. If she were here, would she understand the thrill, the fear, the complexity of this hidden identity? Or would she see only deception, A betrayal of trust? The question gnawed at me, adding a moral tension to the already intense physical one. Arya's existence was no longer purely personal. It was entwined with relationships, with expectations, with the ever-looming pressure of Dr. Varma's ultimatum. I decided to push further, moving to a nearby boutique I had spotted earlier. It was closed for the night, but its display windows reflected Arya perfectly. I studied the reflection with obsessive attention. The curve of my hips in the skirt, the tilt of my head, the way my shoulders carried both elegance and tension. Each glance reinforced the duality. Arjun in my mind, Arya in my body, and the city as witness. As I lingered, a sudden vibration in my pocket made me flinch. A text. From an unknown number. Beautiful, but choices are not free. My pulse spiked. Someone was watching, tracking, or perhaps testing me. The thrill was undeniable, but so was the danger. The message hinted at stakes far higher than I had imagined. Arya was no longer simply a secret identity. She was a player in a game with rules I didn't yet understand. I turned from the window, heels clicking sharply against the pavement as I began the journey back. Every shadow seemed to shift, every passerby a potential observer. Yet with each step, I felt Arya asserting herself more fully, her presence stronger, her courage bolstered by the very tension that could have destroyed me. I realized that thrill and fear were inseparable. The exhilaration of being fully Arya existed only because the risk was real, because exposure was a constant threat. By the time I reached the street outside my apartment building, my legs ached, my heart pounded, but a strange sense of triumph lingered. Arya had navigated the world beyond the apartment, dangerous, unpredictable, and utterly intoxicating. Yet the shadow of Dr. Varma's ultimatum and the mysterious observer remained, reminding me that the night was far from over. I knew the true challenges, the suspenseful moments that would define this night, were still ahead. Every choice, every step, every gesture carried weight. And somewhere, in the shadows of the city, someone was waiting to see if Arya could survive, and if Arjun could face the consequences of stepping fully into his hidden identity. The city night had transformed from thrilling to threatening in a matter of hours. Every streetlight seemed sharper, every shadow deeper, every passerby a potential threat. I, Arya, felt the weight of eyes that weren't supposed to exist. The mysterious messages, the package, the stranger on the corner, they were all connected. I was certain of it. Someone knew about Arya. Someone was watching. As I walked briskly toward a nearby cafe that stayed open late, I tried to focus on something mundane, coffee, pastries, the comforting hum of human chatter. But the mind has a way of twisting normalcy into tension. Every glance at the reflection in the cafe window was met with paranoia. Was the figure behind me from earlier still following? Was the person who sent the cryptic text observing from a distance? The thrill that had accompanied my first steps out of the apartment now intertwined with fear, forming a cocktail that left me simultaneously exhilarated and petrified. I seated myself near the window, hoping the outside world would blend into an illusion of safety. Arya's hands, delicate and poised, rested on the table, fingers brushing the edge of the chair as if reminding me that she existed fully, not merely as a reflection or a fantasy. I sipped the coffee cautiously, savoring the warmth, the aroma, the comforting familiarity of the gesture. Yet every sound outside, the screech of brakes, a shout from the street, a door slamming, twisted my stomach into knots. The note from earlier played over and over in my mind. Beautiful, but choices are not free. The words were more than a warning, they were a test. I couldn't shake the thought that every step I took as Arya was being monitored, analyzed, judged. The thrill of transformation had shifted from private indulgence to a high-stakes game. And yet, every nerve in my body tingled with the intoxicating energy of existing fully, publicly, even if only in the limited space I allowed myself. Then, unexpectedly, a figure appeared in the cafe doorway. My heart leapt violently. A man in a dark coat scanned the room slowly, methodically. My stomach twisted, my fingers tightening on the edge of the table. Could it be him, The one who had sent the messages? The one who had delivered the package? I tried to appear calm, but my pulse betrayed me. I adjusted my posture instinctively, crossing and uncrossing my legs, letting the heels click against the tile, a subtle declaration of presence, a way of signaling that Arya was not someone to be underestimated. The man's gaze swept the room. For a moment, it lingered on me. I froze, my breath caught mid-inhale. My mind raced through escape scenarios, plausible explanations, ways to vanish into the background without revealing my secret. The seconds stretched unbearably, the suspense almost unbearable. Then, just as suddenly, he moved on, disappearing into the back of the cafe, leaving a ripple of tension in his wake. I exhaled shakily, feeling both relief and frustration. Arya had survived the encounter, but the reminder was clear: exposure was always a possibility. I finished my coffee with trembling hands, each sip a reminder of vulnerability and control. I could feel Arjun's rational mind clawing to regain dominance, to retreat to safety, to shed the heels, the skirt, the makeup, and dissolve Arya before the night escalated further. But Arya, bold and defiant, refused to yield. She wanted to exist, to take risks, to push boundaries despite the danger. The internal conflict between these two selves, cautious Arjun and daring Arya, was sharper than ever, a mental tug-of-war that made each decision more critical. Leaving the cafe, I opted for a route that took me past the city's quieter streets, avoiding crowds yet still exposing me to the possibility of being seen. The rhythmic click of heels on pavement became a metronome for my anxiety and excitement. Every movement was deliberate, every glance cautious. The thrill of cross-dressing in public, already intense, now carried the weight of threat, and it amplified my senses in ways that were both invigorating and terrifying. And then the first real close call, a patrol officer on the street, pausing to observe something across the road. Our eyes briefly met, and my heart slammed against my ribcage. I forced myself into a subtle smile, a gesture that was natural for Arya, but completely foreign for Arjun. The officer's gaze lingered just long enough to make my stomach knot before he turned away. I exhaled, trying to suppress the flood of adrenaline. Each encounter, however minor, was a reminder that my double life existed on a knife's edge. I ducked into a small boutique still open for late-night shoppers. Its interior, filled with mannequins dressed in elegant outfits, mirrored Arya's aesthetic almost perfectly. I wandered between racks, fingering fabrics, letting my eyes trace the shapes of dresses, the shine of shoes. The familiar act should have been comforting, yet tonight it carried a new tension. I was no longer simply exploring my persona. I was being observed, tested, and the line between play and danger blurred. As I lingered near a mirror, adjusting a scarf around my neck, I noticed movement in the reflection behind me, a shadow that didn't belong. I froze, my pulse pounding. My instinct screamed for me to flee, but curiosity, pride, and Arya's defiance held me in place. Whoever, or whatever, was there remained just out of sight, heightening my sense of vulnerability and suspense. I reminded myself that retreating was always an option, but I also knew that facing these moments fully was part of the exhilaration of Arya's world. By the time I stepped back onto the street, the city had shifted. Night had deepened, and the shadows seemed thicker, the air heavier. Every sound, footsteps, distant laughter, a car door slamming, felt amplified, each a potential threat or a harbinger of discovery. The night had evolved from a private exploration into a dangerous game, where one misstep could unravel everything. Yet despite the fear, the adrenaline surged, binding Arjun's caution with Arya's boldness, pushing me further into a world where control and chaos existed side by side. Tonight, the balance between thrill and danger had never been more fragile, and I knew the next moments could define everything. The night had grown heavier, the city quieter, but the tension inside me felt like it would burst through my chest. Arya's heels clicked sharply against the uneven pavement as I moved through shadowed streets, every echo amplifying my anxiety. Each step felt like a test, a delicate balance between exposure and confidence. Every passerby, Every flicker of movement in a window could be the mysterious observer, the person behind the messages, the one who knew Arya existed. I paused under the glow of a street lamp, adjusting the strap of my clutch and the angle of my wig. My reflection in a nearby shop window stared back at me, Arya fully realized, poised, delicate, yet radiating a quiet defiance. But behind the elegance, fear pulsed. Dr. Varma's ultimatum haunted me. Gender surgery or else. The words had been a constant shadow in my mind, twisting this night of transformation into a gauntlet of suspense. The or else was undefined, yet it carried weight heavy enough to make my pulse spike with every thought. As I navigated a quiet alley, I felt it, a subtle presence, almost imperceptible, but enough to make every nerve tense. Someone was following me. My instincts screamed caution, yet Arya's persona urged me forward, daring me to exist fully, even under threat. The heels forced careful, deliberate movements, each step a blend of grace and self-preservation. I could feel my heartbeat echoing in my ears, my breath shallow, my fingers trembling slightly as I clutched my bag closer. A sudden noise, a metallic scrape against a dumpster, made me freeze. My mind raced with scenarios, each more terrifying than the last. What if this person had malicious intent? What if Arya, the carefully crafted persona, was not enough to protect me? And yet, a thrill coursed through me, interwoven with fear, because surviving these moments as Arya felt like a triumph over everything that tried to constrain me. I ducked behind a corner, pressing my back against a cold brick wall, peering cautiously down the alley. A figure emerged, their face obscured by shadows. The figure stopped, scanning the street as though searching for someone or something. My pulse thumped violently. I had to make a choice: flee and risk stumbling in heels, exposing myself, or confront the unknown and test the limits of Arya's courage. The figure moved closer, their steps deliberate. My fingers tightened on my clutch, nails digging into leather, and I drew in a slow, steadying breath. Arya doesn't back down, I reminded myself. The thrill of existence under threat surged stronger than the fear. Every instinct, every muscle, every heartbeat screamed for control, for poise, for survival. Suddenly, the figure stopped mere feet from me. A low, calm voice called my name. Arya. My heart skipped. It wasn't the threat I expected, it was Emma. But her eyes were wide with confusion and something darker, suspicion. What are you doing out here like this? She asked, voice trembling slightly. I froze. Arya and Arjun collided in a moment of panic. The secret I had protected for years, the nights of indulgence, the stolen moments of feminine freedom, the exhilaration and terror intertwined, was suddenly at risk of exposure. I opened my mouth, searching for words, but only silence emerged. The city's quiet, the shadows of the alley, and Emma's intense gaze amplified every heartbeat, every flutter of nerves. The tension reached a crescendo. My mind raced with options, consequences, and justifications. Tell her? Deny everything? Run? Arya's defiance pushed me forward. I needed this, I whispered, the words trembling but clear. I needed to be me, even if just for tonight. Emma's eyes softened slightly, but the suspicion lingered. You're not just wearing clothes, are you? Her voice carried a mixture of curiosity, hurt, and uncertainty. Every second stretched, loaded with suspense. The stakes had never been higher. The possibility of losing Emma's trust, of my secret being revealed, and the looming threat of Dr. Varma's ultimatum all collided in a singular moment. And then, without warning, my phone buzzed violently in my clutch. I grabbed it, heart pounding, and read the message. Choices are coming, Arya. The test isn't over. Panic surged through me, mingled with exhilaration. Someone else was watching. Someone else had orchestrated this night, and I was caught in the center of a game I barely understood. I glanced at Emma, at the shadows, at the city stretched beyond the alley. Every movement, every choice, every breath was critical. Arya had survived the apartment, the streets, the cafe, the boutique, but this moment was different. The stakes were no longer just emotional, they were existential. The thrill of cross-dressing, the power of transformation, the intensity of secrecy, it all converged here. Emma took a tentative step closer, her gaze still unsure but filled with concern. I just don't understand, she admitted softly. My chest tightened, torn between relief that she hadn't reacted with anger and terror that the truth was now fully exposed. I swallowed hard, feeling the duality of Arjun and Arya more acutely than ever. I can explain, but it's complicated, I murmured. Please trust me. Her eyes searched mine, and in that tense, suspended moment, I realized that the night had transformed from a private indulgence into a crucible. Every step, every choice, every flicker of courage mattered. The suspense, the thrill, the danger, they were all building towards something inevitable. And somewhere beyond the alley, the unseen observer, the mysterious messages, and Dr. Varma's ultimatum loomed larger than ever, promising that the climax of this night would demand everything: emotion, courage, and the very essence of identity itself. The next steps, I knew, would decide everything. The city felt like a living entity, pulsing around me, each light a spotlight on my existence, each shadow a potential trap. Arya's heels clicked on the cobblestones as I led Emma down a side street, away from curious eyes yet still in the thrumming heart of the night. My body was tense, muscles coiled like springs, every nerve hyperalert. The ultimatum from Dr. Varma was no longer a distant threat. It was an invisible predator, stalking my every decision. Emma's hand brushed against mine, hesitant but searching for connection. I didn't pull away, though my mind was racing. How much should I reveal? How much could I risk? Arya's persona demanded defiance, boldness, and self-expression. Arjun's logic screamed caution, control, and concealment. The collision of the two selves created a pressure so intense I could feel it pressing on my chest. We stopped beneath a dim streetlight, the neon signs of the city reflecting off the rain-slick pavement. Emma's gaze was fixed on me, a mixture of curiosity, suspicion, and unease. I just don't get it, she murmured, her voice barely above the hum of the city. Why are you like this? I swallowed hard, the words knotting in my throat. Arya's defiance flared. Be honest, even if it terrifies her. I'm not like this for fun, I admitted, my voice trembling slightly, but carrying the weight of truth. This is part of me, something I can't ignore, something I've hidden for too long. Arya, she's real, and I need her to exist, even if it's just in secret. Emma's eyes widened, searching mine for sincerity, for lies, for deception. The pause stretched, heavy and suffocating. I felt my pulse hammering against my temples, adrenaline and fear tangled in a tight knot. Somewhere in the city, someone or something was watching, tracking, waiting. The cryptic messages, the package, the mysterious figure from earlier, they all hinted at stakes far higher than mere disclosure. Then came the first tangible threat. From the shadows, a soft but deliberate click echoed, the unmistakable sound of high heels, following, deliberate, synchronized. My breath hitched. I turned slightly, scanning the alley, but the darkness swallowed any details. The sensation of being hunted was real now. This was no longer a test of Arya's confidence alone. This was a direct confrontation with the consequences of my choices. Emma tensed beside me. Did you hear that? She whispered, her voice trembling. I nodded subtly, forcing calm, though every fiber of my being screamed alert. The shadows seemed to pulse with movement, and I realized that the night had transformed into a gauntlet, where every sound, every shadow, every step was a potential reveal, a potential disaster. I took a slow, deliberate step forward, heels clicking against the wet asphalt, letting Arya's elegance mask my fear. Stay close, I murmured to Emma, though even saying the words filled me with dread. The unknown figure in the darkness was a threat, yes, but more pressing was the possibility that this confrontation would unravel the delicate balance of secrecy, identity, and trust that I had maintained for so long. A sudden gust of wind sent a piece of litter skittering across the pavement. My pulse leapt, my senses sharpening. I couldn't tell if the sound had attracted the observer's attention or if it was simply coincidence, but the effect was the same. Fear wrapped around me, coiling tighter with every heartbeat. I had spent years mastering Arya's poise, her confidence, her presence. And now, every skill, every lesson, every carefully cultivated gesture would be tested under the harshest scrutiny imaginable. Emma stepped closer, brushing a hand against my arm. Her warmth grounded me briefly, but the shadowy figure remained, a looming uncertainty that made my every step heavier with suspense. I adjusted my skirt, straightened my blouse, and lifted my chin, Arya's signature posture. She had to survive this, had to thrive under pressure, because if I faltered now, the consequences would extend far beyond embarrassment or exposure. They could unravel the very essence of who I was. The click of the heels grew louder, closer. My stomach twisted, a mix of fear and adrenaline so potent it was almost intoxicating. I tried to focus on the rhythm of my own steps, letting the sound of my movement act as armor, projecting confidence even as my heart raced uncontrollably. Then, a shadow detached itself from the darkness, a figure stepping into the dim lamplight. My breath caught. It wasn't just someone watching, it was deliberate, intentional, and undeniably aware of me, of Arya, of everything I had fought to conceal. I felt a surge of adrenaline, arousal, and fear all at once. The night had shifted from suspense to confrontation, and the balance of secrecy, desire, and threat was about to tip in an unpredictable direction. Emma's eyes widened, realizing the danger before I did. "Who is that?" she whispered, clutching my arm. I shook my head slightly, a silent plea to stay calm, to trust Arya, to trust that I could navigate this. The figure stepped closer, revealing just enough detail to make my heart stop, slender, poised, yet undeniably menacing. In that moment, I realized the night's game had changed. No longer was this about indulgence or secret thrill. It was about survival, trust, and the ultimate test of courage. Every choice from here on would have consequences, and every move could define the boundary between control and chaos. I squared my shoulders, lifting my chin, and let Arya fully emerge. Tonight, she wouldn't hide. Tonight, she would face the stakes, whatever they were, with elegance, defiance, and courage. The shadowed figure took another step, and I knew the moment of reckoning had begun. The figure stopped a few feet away, just outside the weak glow of the street lamp. I could finally see them clearly, a woman, impeccably dressed, high heels clicking in precise rhythm. Her eyes, sharp and assessing, locked onto mine. Every instinct screamed caution, yet something deeper, more thrilling, pulsed inside me. This was no longer just about secrecy, it was a test, a challenge, a provocation. Emma gripped my arm tightly, her confusion and fear evident. "Who is she?" she whispered, her voice trembling. I wanted to tell her to stay back, to trust me, to let Arya handle this, but the words stuck in my throat. My pulse hammered in my ears, each beat loud enough to drown the sounds of the city. The woman's lips curved into a thin, knowing smile. "Arya," she said softly, almost like a taunt. "You're brave, but bravery comes with consequences." My stomach twisted violently. The thrill of being recognized as Arya, the secret I had so carefully cultivated, collided with sheer panic. This wasn't a casual observer. This was someone who knew. Someone who understood. I forced a calm expression, letting Arya's posture mask my inner turmoil. "Who are you?" I asked cautiously, heels digging into the pavement as I shifted my weight, subtly readying myself to flee if necessary. Every step was a delicate balance between elegance and preparedness, between fear and control. The woman's eyes glinted with amusement. "Consider me a messenger," she replied. "A warning. Dr. Varma's ultimatum isn't just a threat, it's an opportunity. You can either comply or face the fallout." The words sent a cold shiver down my spine. I realized then that this confrontation was part of something larger. Someone orchestrated these events, testing me, observing me, pushing me toward choices I hadn't dared to consider before. Emma's hand shook as she pulled gently on mine. "I don't like this," she said softly. Her fear mirrored my own, yet the presence of Arya made me stand taller, exuding confidence that both reassured and frightened Emma. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to remain steady. "I need to know. What do you want from me?" The woman tilted her head, studying me. "I want to see if you're ready," she said cryptically. "Ready to embrace the path Dr. Varma has outlined, ready to face what comes next. You've lived in shadows for too long. Tonight, the shadows are gone." My stomach churned. The cryptic messages, the mysterious observer, the sudden package, all of it was converging into this moment. Every choice I had made to become Arya, every stolen moment of transformation, every risky step outside had led to this confrontation. And now, the reality was undeniable. Arya could no longer hide. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. The heels beneath me were no longer just a part of the persona. They were weapons, extensions of my resolve. Arya's presence surged to the forefront, pushing aside Arjun's hesitation. The stakes were impossibly high, yet the thrill of facing them fully electrified me. Emma's eyes searched mine, a silent plea for honesty. "Please don't do anything reckless," she murmured. The words anchored me momentarily, reminding me that my choices were not mine alone. They affected those I loved. The duality of fear and responsibility, thrill and consequence, pressed against me from all sides. The woman took a slow step closer, heels clicking sharply, echoing in the quiet street. "You must choose," she said. "Comply with the ultimatum, or risk losing everything. Arya isn't just a persona, she's a test. And tests have consequences." I swallowed, every nerve on fire. The city around us seemed to fade into shadow, leaving only the three of us, the observer, Emma, and me as Arya, trapped in a suspended moment of suspense. My mind raced, calculating every possibility, every risk, every outcome. Could I run? Could I defy the ultimatum? Could Arya survive exposure without shattering everything I held dear? Then, unexpectedly, the woman stepped back, her eyes never leaving mine. "Decide quickly," she warned. "The night isn't patient and neither am I." With that, she melted into the shadows, leaving a haunting echo of heels behind and an invisible weight pressing on my chest. I exhaled shakily, trying to steady my racing heart. Arya's poise remained, but the tension was unbearable. Emma glanced at me, her expression a mix of fear, confusion, and concern. "What just happened?" she whispered. I forced a small, tense smile. "A warning," I said, letting Arya's voice convey confidence even as my insides quaked. "But we can handle it." Every step I had taken as Arya, every stolen moment of feminine expression, every thrill and secret had led to this high-stakes confrontation. The night had escalated beyond imagination, and now the real test, the ultimate choice between identity, love, and the consequences of Dr. Varma's ultimatum, was just beginning. The streets had never felt smaller, more confining. Every shadow seemed alive, every flicker of movement a potential threat. Emma's hand remained tentatively in mine, grounding me even as the tension pressed on all sides. Arya's heels clicked on the asphalt like a countdown, each echo a reminder that time was running out, time to make choices that would change everything. Then it happened. A sudden movement at the edge of the street drew my gaze. A car, black and unmarked, slid silently to a stop, its engine almost imperceptible. The doors opened, and two figures emerged, both wearing masks that obscured their faces. My heart raced, adrenaline spiking through my veins. The warnings, the messages, the cryptic encounters, it had all led to this. Emma stiffened beside me, panic rising. Who are they?" she whispered, voice trembling. I had no answer. All I knew was that Arya couldn't back down now. Not when exposure, danger, and the ultimatum loomed like a storm ready to strike. The masked figures moved with precise, deliberate steps, flanking us, cutting off any escape. My mind whirled through strategies: run, fight, plead, but each felt inadequate, every option layered with risk. Yet Arya's presence surged, commanding poise, grace, and courage. I straightened, lifted my chin, and met the lead figure's gaze, refusing to show weakness. "You've been warned," one said, voice modulated and unfamiliar. "The ultimatum is not idle. Compliance is your only option." My stomach churned. This wasn't just about secrecy anymore. This was about survival, about identity, about every choice I had made as Arjun and Arya converging in a single, tense confrontation. Emma clutched my arm, her nails digging in lightly. "We should leave," she urged. But I shook my head subtly, feeling Arya's defiance rising.
"No."
"We face this. We survive. We endure." The figures advanced slowly. Each step echoed in the still night, punctuating the suspense, amplifying fear. One reached toward me. Threat or guidance? I couldn't tell. My mind raced. Could I trust anyone now? Had the warning woman been friend or foe? Was Dr. Varma orchestrating this from the shadows, testing me, pushing me to the brink? Then came the twist. Unexpected, disorienting. The lead figure lifted a hand, not to strike, but to reveal a familiar face beneath the mask. My heart lurched. It was someone I knew, my colleague at the clinic, someone I had trusted implicitly. "You shouldn't have ignored the ultimatum," she said, her voice calm, yet chilling. "You leave us no choice." Shock froze me in place. Betrayal mixed with adrenaline, fear coiling tighter in my chest. Arya's defiance clashed violently with Arjun's panic. How could someone from my trusted circle be involved? How deeply did Dr. Varma's reach extend? Every instinct screamed escape, yet stepping away would mean surrendering the control I had clung to for so long. Emma's eyes widened, realization dawning. "You knew?" she whispered, horror in her voice. I shook my head, powerless to answer. The web of deceit, danger, and manipulation had grown too tangled, and now we were trapped at its center. The masked colleague took a step closer, revealing a small device in her hand. "You will comply, or everything changes," she warned. The device, a strange, futuristic-looking instrument, glowed faintly, a silent symbol of threat. I could feel Arya trembling inside me, her thrill and fear intertwined in a visceral dance. In that suspended moment, I realized the night's stakes had escalated beyond imagination. This wasn't just about cross-dressing, secret identity, or thrill. This was about control, power, and survival. Every step I had taken, every risk I had embraced as Arya, led to this ultimate confrontation. My mind raced, a torrent of calculations, fear, and defiance. Could I comply? Could I defy? Could Arya endure exposure and manipulation without shattering completely? The answers weren't clear, yet the night demanded a choice. I took a slow, deliberate breath, feeling Emma's warmth grounding me even as tension tightened around us. We have to think," I murmured, projecting Arya's calm even as my chest burned with anxiety. "There's always a choice, but we have to be smart." The masked colleague's eyes narrowed, clearly unimpressed by hesitation. "Time is not your ally," she said sharply. "The clock is running out, Arya." The warning was both literal and figurative, echoing Dr. Varma's ultimatum and the countless steps I had taken in secret, all converging on this moment. Every muscle in my body coiled with tension. Arya's persona, my defiance, the thrill of transformation, and the fear of exposure collided in a crescendo of suspense. This was no longer a game of identity or indulgence. This was survival. This was confrontation. This was the ultimate test of courage, composure, and self-determination. Emma's gaze locked with mine, pleading, fearful, but trusting. I nodded subtly, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down. Whatever choice came next, compliance, defiance, flight, it would define the boundary between Arjun and Arya, between secrecy and exposure, between love and loss. The night stretched taut, the masked colleague advancing, the device glowing ominously. Every second ticked like a countdown to irreversible consequences. I could feel the suspense tangling with exhilaration in my veins, a blend of fear and empowerment that made each heartbeat a drum of defiance and dread. I took a step forward, letting Aria's poise dominate, letting confidence mask the tremor beneath. This was the moment where the night, the ultimatum, and my dual identity collided. One decision now would set the stage for everything to come: love, survival, and transformation. The city around us felt like it had disappeared. The streetlight flickered overhead, casting fragmented shadows that danced across the wet pavement, each one a silent observer to the tension coiling around us. Emma clutched my arm, fear radiating from her, but I held her hand firmly, letting Aria's confidence mask the storm raging beneath. The masked colleague stood just feet away, the device in her hand pulsing faintly, a symbol of imminent threat. Every beat of my heart sounded like a drum of war. "You must comply, Aria," the colleague said, voice calm but commanding. "Every moment of hesitation costs you. Every refusal has consequences." Her eyes glinted under the dim light, unwavering and sharp. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. The stakes had escalated beyond secrecy or indulgence. This was about survival, about identity, about the very essence of who I was. Aria's heels clicked decisively against the pavement as I took a slow step forward, projecting poise even as adrenaline and fear intertwined in my veins. "You cannot back down," I told myself. "Not now." The thrill of transformation, the years of secret indulgence, every step Aria had ever taken, had prepared me for this moment. Emma's voice trembled beside me. I don't understand. Why? Why would anyone do this?" Her confusion mirrored my own. The betrayal ran deeper than I could articulate, yet Aria's defiance refused to let fear dominate. I squeezed her hand gently, grounding both of us. "It's complicated," I murmured, "but we have to face it together." The masked colleague advanced another step. The device in her hand emitted a faint hum, subtle but insistent. "The ultimatum is real, Aria. Dr. Varma will not wait forever. Compliance is not optional." My stomach twisted. The ultimatum, the warnings, the previous encounters, they were all threads weaving into this single, inescapable confrontation. Then, unexpectedly, another figure appeared from the shadows, a familiar silhouette. My pulse spiked. It was the mysterious woman from earlier, the one who had delivered the initial warning. She moved with calculated grace, stopping beside the masked colleague, her eyes locked on mine. "You think you understand the rules," she said softly, "but tonight is the true test. Aria, everything you've done, everything you've become, is about to be judged." The street seemed to shrink around us. The air was thick with tension, every breath a challenge, every heartbeat a countdown. Aria's presence surged through me, a blend of defiance, elegance, and courage. I could feel the power of transformation, the thrill of existing fully, even under threat. But the stakes were unlike anything before. The confrontation had become a gauntlet of emotion, secrecy, and identity. Emma's eyes were wide with fear and confusion. "What's going to happen?" she whispered, clutching my arm. I exhaled slowly, forcing calm. "We face it," I said firmly. "Together." Aria's poise masked the tremor beneath. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet the thrill of defiance, of standing tall, of embracing identity fully, anchored me. The two figures advanced simultaneously, surrounding us. My mind raced with possibilities: flight, compliance, negotiation, but each option carried peril. Every choice was a balance between preserving Aria, protecting Emma, and surviving the consequences of Dr. Varma's ultimatum. Then came the first true test. The masked colleague raised the device, a subtle warning of its capabilities. I could see its faint glow illuminating my reflection in the wet pavement, splitting Aria's image into fragments. It was symbolic, almost cruel, the reflection of two selves, coexisting yet under threat. Arjun and Arya collided in that instant, panic and defiance entwined, threatening to overwhelm reason. "You must decide," the mysterious woman said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Will you submit to the path set before you? Or will you embrace Arya fully? Consequences be damned? Her words struck me like lightning. The ultimatum was no longer abstract. The night, the city, the shadows, they all demanded an answer. I felt Emma's hand tighten in mine, her trust a fragile lifeline. The realization hit me with terrifying clarity. Any choice I made would define not just me, but the bond we shared. Every step, every gesture, every heartbeat was a negotiation between fear and desire, secrecy and revelation, compliance and defiance. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the night pressing down. Arya's persona surged, unyielding, vibrant, and resolute. I took a deliberate step forward, letting the heels dictate the rhythm of courage, letting elegance mask terror, letting defiance shine through every movement. The suspense was nearly unbearable, yet the exhilaration of standing tall as Arya under such scrutiny, under such threat, was intoxicating. The two figures stopped, evaluating, measuring the resolve radiating from me. The street felt suspended in time, the tension so thick it seemed to solidify around us. Every sound, the faint hum of the device, Emma's shallow breaths, the distant city noises, was amplified, echoing through the alley of suspense we were trapped in. And then, as if the night itself exhaled, the figures stepped back slightly, a subtle acknowledgement that the first test had been met. My chest heaved, adrenaline and relief mingling, but the tension remained, unresolved, unbroken, hinting at the final moments that would define the night. The night had pushed Arya to the brink, forced Arjun to confront vulnerability, and tested every facet of identity, courage, and desire. The next step would not be measured in hesitation or calculation. It would demand action, and every heartbeat would count. The street felt impossibly narrow, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Emma's hand tightened around mine, her fear palpable, yet her trust anchored me. Arya's presence surged, fierce and unrelenting, masking every tremor that Arjun felt. The masked colleague stepped forward again, the device humming ominously in her hand, a symbol of impending consequences. Every heartbeat reverberated in my ears like a drum of fate. "You've made it this far," the mysterious woman said softly, almost teasingly. "But the real choice is now. Comply or risk everything." Her eyes glinted in the dim light, sharp and unyielding. I swallowed hard, the weight of the ultimatum pressing down on me like a physical force. Arya's heels clicked against the pavement as I took a deliberate step forward. Fear, excitement, and defiance coursed through me in equal measure. Every instinct screamed caution, yet the thrill of fully embracing Arya, even under threat, was intoxicating. This was the ultimate test. My identity, my courage, and the fragile balance between secrecy and exposure. Emma's eyes searched mine, her gaze a mixture of worry, hope, and trust. You don't have to do this alone," she whispered, voice trembling. I squeezed her hand, letting Arya's calm dominate my tone. "We face it together," I murmured, projecting confidence even as my chest tightened with fear. The masked colleague advanced, raising the device. Its faint glow illuminated Arya's reflection in the wet pavement, splitting me into two selves, the poised, defiant woman and the panicked, vulnerable man. The symbolism was cruel, yet potent. I realized in that instant that every step I had taken as Arya, every secret indulgence, every stolen moment of transformation, had prepared me for this confrontation. "You must decide," the colleague said sharply. "Comply with Dr. Varma's demands, or face the consequences. There is no third option." My mind raced. Compliance meant surrendering autonomy, identity, and control. Defiance meant risking exposure, danger, and possibly Emma's trust. Every option carried stakes higher than I had ever faced. Then, unexpectedly, the mysterious woman stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "Or, you can embrace who you are fully, Arya. Let nothing bind you. Let nothing intimidate you. But know this, the path will not be easy. The night tests more than courage. It tests truth. The revelation struck me like lightning. For the first time, a choice felt real, empowered, and terrifyingly risky. Arya surged to the forefront, defiance and identity merging into a single, unstoppable force. I straightened my posture, lifted my chin, and felt the thrill of living fully in the persona I had cultivated. Emma's hand remained in mine, grounding me even as the stakes reached their zenith. "Whatever you choose," she whispered, "I'm with you." The words carried weight beyond comprehension, intertwining with the adrenaline, fear, and exhilaration thrumming through me. The masked colleague's eyes narrowed. "So be it," she said, lowering the device slightly, but keeping its threat implicit. The tension was suffocating, yet electrifying, every second stretching into eternity. The city around us seemed to pause, holding its breath as the ultimate confrontation unfolded. I took a deliberate step forward, feeling Arya's confidence solidify with every movement. The heels clicked like punctuation in the suspenseful rhythm of the night, marking each heartbeat, each breath, each calculated decision. The thrill of transformation, the exhilaration of existing fully as Arya despite the danger, was intoxicating, a heady mix of fear, power, and liberation. Emma squeezed my hand, and I realized that the night was no longer about secrecy or indulgence. It was about choice, courage, and truth. Every moment leading up to this had prepared me. Every step as Arya had sharpened my resolve, and now the culmination demanded action, presence, and authenticity. The figures surrounding us, once threatening, now cautious, watched intently as I made my decision. I could feel the weight of the ultimatum, the pressure of Dr. Varma's words, and the electric tension of the mysterious observers coalescing into a single, critical moment. My chest heaved, adrenaline pumping, fear and thrill intertwined as I stepped fully into Arya's presence. "Enough," I said firmly, voice steady, eyes locking with a masked colleague. "I am Arya. I will not hide. I will not comply with ultimatums that strip me of my identity. And I will not let fear dictate who I am." My words hung in the air, heavy and resolute, and I felt the pulse of power and liberation course through me. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. The city seemed to hold its breath, the shadows froze, and even Emma's wide eyes reflected awe and relief. Then, slowly, the masked colleague lowered the device, a faint nod acknowledging the defiance she hadn't expected. The mysterious woman's lips curved into a subtle smile, approval glimmering in her eyes. The climax had been reached, not through compliance, not through avoidance, but through the courage to embrace identity fully, even under threat. Yet the night was far from over. The shadows still loomed, the ultimatum still hovered, and the consequences of choices made in defiance were yet to unfold. As I stood tall, heels clicking with authority, I realized the suspense was far from resolved. Secrets, threats, and the challenges of Arya's existence still lingered, but for now, a crucial victory had been claimed. The confrontation had ended, but the night's story, and the ultimate reckoning with Dr. Varma's ultimatum, was only beginning. The street had fallen into an eerie silence. The masked figures had retreated into shadows, leaving only Emma and me standing beneath the flickering lamplight. My chest heaved, adrenaline still thrumming like wildfire through my veins. The confrontation had ended, or so it seemed, but the weight of the night pressed down harder than ever. Emma clutched my hand tightly, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and fear. I can't believe you just," she began, but words faltered on her lips. I gave her a small, reassuring smile, letting Arya's poise mask the tremor in my chest. Every step I had taken tonight, every secret indulgence, every risky moment had led to this fragile victory, and yet, the shadow of Dr. Varma's ultimatum loomed over me like a storm cloud ready to break. I let my gaze sweep the alley, half expecting the figures to return. But the only movement was the faint ripple of wind, scattering leaves across the wet pavement. For a moment, I allowed myself to breathe, to savor the thrill of survival, the intoxicating rush of fully embracing Arya even under threat. The transformation, the thrill, the vulnerability, the empowerment pulsed through me like electricity. Emma's voice was soft, hesitant. "Do you think it's really over?" I shook my head slightly, the chill of uncertainty gripping me. "No," I admitted. "It's never truly over. But we've survived tonight, and that counts for something." My words were meant to reassure, yet the truth lingered like a shadow at the edge of my consciousness. Dr. Varma's ultimatum was not idle. The warning, the confrontation, the cryptic observers, it was all part of something larger, something I had yet to understand. A sudden sound made me freeze, a faint, deliberate click, echoing across the wet pavement. My heart lurched. Emma tensed beside me, her grip tightening. I could feel the familiar surge of adrenaline, the thrill of danger and secrecy intertwining with fear. Aria's presence surged within me, poised, elegant and ready. Every instinct screamed that the night was far from finished. From the shadows, a figure emerged slowly, deliberately. This time, I could see only its silhouette, tall and commanding, moving with precise grace. The faint glow of the city lights caught on polished shoes, reflecting off the wet pavement, hinting at authority and power. My breath hitched. The game was far from over, and the stakes were higher than ever. Emma's whisper broke the tension. "Who is that?" she asked, fear lacing her words. I could only shake my head slightly. The figure's identity was unknown, yet the aura of command, danger, and control radiated in every deliberate step. Aria's defiance surged within me, yet even she could not deny the unease clawing at my stomach. The figure stopped just beyond the reach of the lamplight, silent and deliberate. A single word, delivered softly yet with undeniable weight, pierced the night. "Aria." My chest tightened. Recognition, dread, and exhilaration collided in a violent storm. Who had spoken? How much did they know? And what would they demand next? Emma clutched my arm, her voice barely audible. What do we do?" I swallowed hard, feeling the pulse of the night in my veins. "We stay together," I murmured, projecting calm even as every nerve screamed alert. Aria's heels clicked against the pavement as I shifted slightly, every movement measured, every gesture a declaration of presence and defiance. The figure moved another step closer, the shadows concealing most details, yet the intent was clear. This was no casual encounter. This was a continuation of the game, the ultimatum, and the intricate web of control surrounding Dr. Varma, the masked colleagues, and the mysterious observer. Every choice I made tonight had been preparation, but the real test had yet to begin. The street seemed to hold its breath, time stretching taut, each second an eternity. I could feel Emma trembling beside me, yet her trust anchored me. The weight of decisions, the thrill of transformation, and the persistent shadow of danger coalesced into a pressure so intense it felt like the air itself was solid. A whisper of movement, closer now, deliberate and precise. The figure's presence was commanding, yet enigmatic, leaving a knot of suspense tightening in my chest. Every instinct screamed caution. Every thrill of Aria's persona demanded boldness. I stood firm, poised, and defiant, fully aware that the night had shifted into uncharted territory. Then, a single detail sent a jolt through me, a faint reflection in a nearby puddle. The figure's face was partially visible, yet the features were unfamiliar, impossible to read. The eyes, sharp and calculating, seemed to see through me, beyond Aria, beyond Arjun, straight into the tangled heart of identity, fear, and desire. Emma's grip tightened, and I knew that whatever happened next would define more than tonight. It would define trust, courage, and the fragile balance of our shared secret. The suspense was unbearable, yet exhilarating. Every heartbeat, every breath, every step of Aria's poised figure echoed with the promise of revelation or disaster. The figure finally spoke again, softly but with unmistakable authority. "The ultimatum isn't finished, and neither are the consequences." The words cut through the night like a blade, leaving only uncertainty in their wake. I exhaled slowly, letting Aria's defiance radiate outward. The night was far from over, the shadows still lurking, the threats still present. Every choice, every risk, every heartbeat carried weight. The suspense had reached its zenith, and the story, our story, remained unresolved. Emma looked at me, eyes wide, whispering, "What now?" I could only offer a tense, knowing smile, the flicker of courage and defiance burning in Aria's gaze. "Now we wait," I said softly, "and we survive. Whatever comes next, we face it together." The figure in the shadows stepped back slowly, disappearing as silently as it had appeared, leaving only the echo of heels and the faint hum of tension lingering in the night. The city breathed around us, indifferent yet alive, the story unfinished, unresolved, suspended in perfect suspense. And in that moment, I realized the truth. The ultimatum was far from over, the night was far from safe, and Aria's journey, our journey, was only beginning. The suspense remained, a knife edge waiting for the next chapter, the next revelation, the next choice that would determine everything.